Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very inspiring show coming right up with special guest, Lisa Anne Rooney, and she's here to share with us her new book, Ghost Stories, A Medium's Interaction with the Afterlife. Now, have you ever heard ghost stories just from a psychic medium? So I'm very curious what Lisa has to share with us today. Many of you know Lisa. She's a medium, life coach, and spiritual counselor who helps both the living and the dead move forward. She's been teaching psychic development classes for more than 10 years. Many of you will remember Lisa. She's been on the show before, last time to share with us her best-selling book, A Survival Guide for Those Who Have Psychic Abilities and Don't Know What to Do with Them. So let's welcome to the show, Lisa Anne Rooney.
Thanks for having me.
You know, what an honor it is to have you here. And gosh, Halloween, we get to talk about ghost stories. I mean, how exciting is that?
I know, it's my favorite time of the year.
Oh, and you bring such a unique perspective because your ghost stories are from a medium's perspective. And I have to ask, how long have you been connecting with the afterlife?
I have, since I can remember, since I was a child, I have been able to see. I didn't necessarily connect with them because they freaked me out, but I don't remember a time that I didn't see dead people.
So Your new book, Ghost Stories, what prompted you to write that?
A lot of it had to do with, being a medium, a lot of people, when they find out what I do, they'll say to me, oh my God, what is it like? How do you see things? What's the view of your world? So I wanted to kind of let people see what it was really like to be me or someone that has my abilities, even just going into a store, what it's like. I think people have this image that it's like a horror movie, and sometimes it can be pretty scary or surprising and shocking, but other times it's just on a day-to-day basis what we face as being able to see the things we're able to see.
So I understand you had a trip to Scotland that you wrote quite a bit about.
I did, and I'm hoping that in the future that when I go on trips, I'll write a book about all the different adventures, because there's so many, when you get to these historic castles and other places, the amount of spirits that are around are completely different than what we face in Canada or in America, because their spirits are more, they're younger almost. So it's such a different perspective. As someone who can pick up information and pick up feelings and see spirits, it's so interesting.
So when you were in Scotland, Scotland is just beautiful and has such amazing history. Did you feel as you were going, maybe, let's say, to Loch Ness, that you were, kind of experiencing spirits that were there?
Yeah, Loch Ness was, I had been there because my husband's from Scotland. So we had been a few times. And when I was there the one time, it wasn't as busy and as touristy. And so I felt a lot more when I was there the first time. This time when I went back, I did feel stuff and I picked up stuff, but it wasn't as strong. There was so many people around. So spirit kind of retreated. And it was kind of sad for me because I wanted to feel more there. But I fortunately went to a lot of other places that had less living humans running around. So I was able to pick up more and see more and experience more.
Well, I'm so glad that you shared that, because I think a lot of times when people look at mediumship, they expect you've got a line of spirits looking to speak with you all the time, but there are moments of peace as well.
Yeah, definitely. There's when there's a lot of humans around, spirit kind of retreats, unless it's one of those things where, if I go into a big store, people will have spirits with them. So the average person may say, say if there's 20 living people in the store, for me, there's probably about 40 or 50 people in the store because there's all the dead people with them as well. So it can be busier for a medium or a sensitive to go into those places. But when we're trying to pick up something from the land or something from the location, a lot of the spirits will retreat because there is so many other spirits and so many other people there. So it's hard to pick up information. I think that's why a lot of ghost shows and things, they go at night. I mean, they go for the drama, but also for the fact that when all the human energy is gone, they can pick up the dead people better.
Yeah, they can have that better interaction.
Yeah, absolutely.
Was there a castle that you went to that really stands out for you as far as your ability to connect with the spirits on the other side?
I think my favorite one, there were so many. I mean, Scotland, the history is so old, it was wonderful. But I think the two is the Nodder Castle, which is this crazy, amazing castle ruin. And the other one is the one in my husband's hometown, Brodie Ferry Castle. Those two, the energies were incredible. And I got a lot at both of those. The one in Brodie Ferry, the spirits that were there, actually, some of them followed us back to our Airbnb. So I had more interactions with them. The ones in the Nodder was just a mix of residual energy, which is not necessarily haunting. That's just like an imprint that's there, which there was a lot of war there and a lot of battles. So there was a lot of feeling that I could feel there, and some really interesting spirits as well that were, some were scary, some were just, you try to figure out why are they still here and doing what they're doing. And then Brodie Ferry there was old ghosts there, and then there was also ones that were from like World War II, and so because there was that castle was used during the war. And so there was a lot of soldiers there, which was really interesting. It was not what I was expecting.
That's so unique. Okay, so you talked about spirits following you back to your Airbnb. I think most people get a little freaked out about that. What was that
a really
like?
Nice soldier. It's so funny because my family is so used to they get kind of paranoid now because when something happens that's paranormal, I don't want to freak them out. And for me, it's just everyday kind of thing. So this one soldier that followed me back to the Airbnb to talk, just because I had questions for him about why were they still all there? Why was there so many of them there? He followed me back, and he was a real gentleman. So he knocked on the door to come in rather than just come in. And my husband kept hearing the door knocking, and he'd get up and go to the door, and he would say, "There's someone at the door," and he kept thinking someone was trying to break in. And I just stayed quiet, and I invited the spirit in, and we had a chat, and then finally he stopped knocking. So my family finally got to rest. But it happens all the time where I don't want to freak them out because then they'd be up all night, and in some ways they're used to it. In some ways it freaks them out when there's a physical something that happens, like a knocking at the door because the spirit wants to come in.
Yeah, I think for some people, if they're not seeing spirits, that could be something that would freak them out, kind of trying to figure out, is this good? Is this bad? What are we dealing with here? Has there been a haunting that you visited that really kind of had you on edge?
There's been a few. I think the hardest time, especially if we're talking about that trip or other ones, is I've had some things in my house which were not pleasant. There was one spirit that my husband connected to, and when he called me, it connected to me, and the glass on my stove exploded from the negative energy. It was not good. So that was probably one of the worst. But I think when it's hard to pick because there's so many that are kind of negative, and I try not to put so many negative ones in the book because it freaks people out so much. There was one negative spirit when we were at the Hermitage, which is not too far from our house, and that was this dark mass that people had been doing dark magic there, and it kind of came towards me to attack me. And fortunately, another spirit stepped in and kind of blocked it, and it went away, which was really good because I was getting all prepared to try not to take this thing home with me because it can really affect you when you get out there and start working with them. They can follow you home and then disturb your whole life. They may not possess you, but they can definitely disturb everything.
So what are some ways that people can kind of protect themselves when they go to these old and ancient places, just so that they're not taking these kind of things home?
There is the prayers of protection, where you just protect your whole self and you make sure that you're protected and that nothing follows you home. There's also just when you leave, you need to just very firmly say, whatever's here is staying here. You're not following me. Some of the badder things won't listen and they'll follow. And you have to just continue to cleanse your house. Be very, very firm. It's, I always say it's like a party guest that you don't want at your party. You just have to keep telling it to get out until it stays out. Once you clear your house, there's, putting salt on any entrance of your property and things that won't because negative spirits won't cross salt. There's the ions in salt, they won't pass. It absorbs it. So you can protect your area with that.
That's such great advice. You don't want to get into a situation where you're having problems. My goodness,
Yeah, and a lot of people don't realize it because what will happen is the mood, like it starts very slowly. So then it'll be like everyone in the house starts fighting and you're freaking out over nothing. And then it'll be things start to happen with your health, or you start having a run of bad luck. So they they like chaos and they start messing with your life that way, rather than it being like you see in horror movies where it's a possession and, they get more energy by chaos and by causing us pain.
Yeah, we don't want that.
No.
We don't want that. Well,
no.
And I know, of all these beautiful experiences that you've had, and some of them are a little like, oh, I don't know if I want to ever experience that. You also had an experience in one of my favorite places. It's Glencoe. And I'd love for you to share that with us.
Yeah, it was so interesting. I had this really strange thing, and I still don't really know what it was, where it was like I stepped into another dimension, and everything got quiet, but not. It was like the sound shifted to a different sound. Everything heightened in the sense of the wind was stronger, the smells were stronger, but all the traffic and all the noise went away, and the energy just felt really different. And then it went away in a flash, and I was like, oh, that was awesome. I want to go back and do that. But I couldn't get it to happen again. And then I looked over, and there was these 7 Highland men walking towards me. And at first I was like, are they real? Because they were solid, and they had a couple horses with them, and they were dirty and long beards. And they came over, and then they started talking to me, but they were talking to me in Gaelic. And they were laughing and enjoying the fact that I was seeing them, which kind of also intrigued me because they weren't shocked at me seeing them. They just loved seeing it, and they thought it was really funny. And then they just walked away. And it was really, really interesting. They seemed like really nice people, but hard and tough. So it was wonderful. There was a lot of experiences in Glencoe. It's a beautiful place.
Yeah, my goodness. It's so magical there. I can understand why you've had so many just profound experiences in Scotland, because everywhere you go, you feel magic.
Yes, everywhere. And I know some of it is from past lives and things like that, but it's a place that has so much history. And even just like, if you're not someone who believes in all this kind of stuff, it's one of those things where just standing in a building that is hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of years old compared to our countries. Like our countries are, younger than some of their sidewalks. And it's just standing there and thinking, oh my God, William Wallace stood here, or, the Queen of Scots and all of that kind of stuff. It's mind blowing.
So looking back on, in the stories that you've shared in your book, what do you think is one of your favorite ones?
Yeah, I was thinking about that this morning because I was looking through, because it's hard because these ones are really all my favorites because I have so many, but these ones are my favorite. Yeah, it really is hard, but I think the Nodder, it had such different stories. Like I experienced so much there, from nice feelings to scary feelings to just residual energy and what people felt there. And I think the other one is probably the messages from spirit, which is The one where, I just talk about my mom being the blue jay that comes to visit, that walked my daughter to school her first few days, and about I think it's chapter 11, the hello from the other side. And it's messages that we receive and signs we receive. My husband's aunt, who we were on the beach by Donator, and it was the anniversary of her death, and there was all these yellow flowers that were scattered across the sand, which was a message to her kids that she was there. And then when her grandson was born as a preemie, all the different things that happened, the synchronicity that told them that they were there. It was so nice to hear the confirmations that other people had experienced spirit. It's nice to know that we're not alone and that they're there with us and helping us.
How beautiful is that to have that kind of experience, and that kind of connection? My goodness.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And it's nice when I see other people recognizing it, because it's obvious to me because I can see them. But it's really, really nice when people kind of connect the dots and go, wow, I know my mom is here. And because that is something specific that we had together. And it's just really nice when people recognize it, because they are literally all around us, and they're trying to help us as best as they can to achieve what we need to achieve.
So when you get the idea that a spirit can see you and they realize that, do you feel like you're having, that they're kind of seeking you out, or you're having greater communication with them?
I do. And sometimes I always joke about how I try the no eye contact, because it depends on what I'm doing in life. If I'm out at the grocery store and a random spirit sees that I can see them and they want me to talk to the person in front of me, I'm not someone who will just go up and start reading people or tell people messages. So I always just have to say to the spirit, you get them to come see me if you want them to see me, or if there's something that's really important, I'll pass it on. But it's hard, because I would spend my whole day talking to spirits. So unless it's really, really important, I work with my guides, and I tell them that if it's important, that they can then come when I'm meditating at night and tell me what I need to know, and then I'll try to pass it on to the person.
So I understand in your book, you even talk about meeting a witch. And I think that that's really interesting, because people are like, well, wait a minute, is that a real thing?
It is. And, and I guess the way I look at it is growing up the way that I was, I guess years ago, I would have been considered a witch, someone who had supernatural abilities, someone who worked in healing or herbs or anything would have been considered a witch. But she definitely was intimidating. I don't normally get frightened by spirits, but she was intimidating, and she wanted us out of that forest and wanted us off that path. And it was pretty, like I said, intimidating. She had her head down, hands out, like she was almost pushing us down the path. And I've seen her since. I see her because we go there often. And a lot of times she'll just sit and watch. It's almost like she's just I don't know if she's trying to protect the area or protect the people that come into the area if something's not right. But she was pretty intimidating.
Obviously, she's feels like she has a mission there to accomplish, and she's on it.
Yes, yeah, definitely. She is a protector there, and I've tried to do, because I always try to debunk or figure out things, and I tried to find if there was anybody in the area that was ever convicted of witchcraft or known for doing that kind of thing, and I could not find anything. But the whole area was farms and forest, so I'm sure there was lots of that going on years ago. But she has definitely got a lot of power and very intimidating. I try to just be very nice to her anytime I see her.
Oh my goodness. Well, and what is your favorite place to visit then that you connect with the spirits and they are very welcoming to you?
That's a good question. Well, my favorite place is my house, because I have some spirits that live in my house that I work with, and I They're just part of the family. But outside, it would probably be, and that's a really hard question to answer. I think, you know what, when I was in Scotland, I did feel, although there was some negative ones and things, I did feel very connected to everybody there. They were very willing to talk, very willing to interact, and I don't know if that has to do with how old the spirits were, a lot of the spirits, but it was a very nice place. I felt very comfortable there.
Do you ever get to the point where, you go to a place and, you have spirits that are coming and speaking to you in Gaelic and you ask for them maybe to speak in English so you can understand? Does that happen?
It usually does. I didn't do it with the ones in Glencoe because it was kind of happened really fast and I was a little wobbly from that experience. But when I do readings and other spirits come in that are from another country or speak a different language, I'm not sure if it's that they get translated or if my guides translate it for me. But I do hear them in English most of the time. And I'm curious to go back to Glencoe to see if I do run into them, if I could get them to translate in English, because they were speaking completely in Gaelic and nothing was translated. And it was one of the only experiences I've had where that has happened.
It sounds like they were having a great time.
Oh, they were having a great, at my expense. Yes, totally. They thought it was hilarious. I was a little like, well, these guys are pretty big, but they were laughing and, having a Scottish husband, I know their kind of energy and the way they tease and all of that kind of stuff. So I knew they were just joking at my expense and they were okay.
That is just fabulous. With all the experiences that you have and continue to have, I'm sure you have like one that really has stuck in your mind and it stays with you.
I think the initial ones, where I was a kid and I really started to, it's actually in my first book. I didn't put it in this book, but there was one where my mom was sick and I didn't know it. And I was on the phone downstairs and a spirit, it was one of the very first communications. This woman came up the stairs, came right up to me and told me to go and take care of my mother. And she just stood there like nose to nose to me. And I put the phone down. I think I hung up on my friend. I didn't even say anything. And I went up and there, my mom was sick and on the floor in the bathroom. And it was one of the first times that I actually listened and communicated. And it's something that always sticks out in my mind for me. And there's been hundreds and hundreds and thousands of other ones.
Do you ever have, in some of these places, spirits have been there for hundreds of years. Do you ever have spirits that come to tell you something that they're kind of trying to repair the past or want a message told?
I haven't yet. I've had interactions with, people where it's kind of like the information was wrong and that they passed on and they're very frustrated about it, but I don't know if they don't expect me to go on and tell the story, but they just more or less are frustrated by the story. I often say I have to feel like I have to defend a lot of ghosts because people always say, oh, they're angry and they're mean. It's like, no, I think they're just frustrated. They're frustrated that they're stuck. They're frustrated that people are bugging them or that the stories are being told wrong, and they get frustrated. And so they want people to know the truth.
Yeah, so I have some kind of understanding of maybe something that's been miscategorized in history.
Right. Yeah. And it is really one of those things where I just look at them as people that are either stuck or there's a reason why, and which could be many, many reasons why they are stuck. And it's just, I feel sorry for a lot of them, even if they're angry and mean, because they're for whatever reason, they don't feel like they can cross over and do what they're supposed to do on the other side. So I almost, feel like someone needs to be an advocate to them and help them rather than, when people go and investigate, they're almost like poking at them rather than trying to help them. And I kind of feel like I need to stand up for a lot of them.
Well, I can understand that because you usually hear when people go in to do investigations, they're really trying to get responses and saying things that could elicit those type of responses. So you look at just the overall picture, and if someone's been in a castle for hundreds of years, they may not want somebody there.
Right. Right. Or like if you were in your house and times have changed or you don't, depending on what your perception is, how they can see it, and then someone's coming and yelling at you, you're not going to be very receptive to that, right? Like, and I know they do that so they can get proof, physical proof, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that the spirits or ghosts are bad.
No, it just means that they may be frustrated and don't want anyone in their home, So.
Right, exactly. Right. So it's kind of like, I always feel like when people say those things, I'm always like, wait a minute. The ghost might actually be nice, just maybe mad that you're in their house.
Well, and when you look back on your trip to Scotland and being there, was there one place that was just inundated with spirits as opposed to any other place you went to?
I think the one that had the most spirits in it was probably Brodie Ferry Castle. And that was just because there were so many soldiers. I had such a hard time when you read the story to even go into the castle, and even being in the courtyard. It was so busy. It was such a busy location. It was overwhelming. It took me about 2 or 3 attempts to actually get in there and get to the top. And even when I did eventually get to the top, I couldn't wait to get down because the ghost that was in there. But and then on top of it, all the soldiers that were there in the courtyard and walking about, it was very overwhelming.
I'm sure it can feel that way when you have so much presence that's there, so many spirits that are in one place. It probably feels almost like it could be suffocating in some ways, I would think.
It is. I try to explain it's like being underwater and not being able to breathe at times. And there's lots of times when I go out where it gets overwhelming and I just have to put down whatever I'm doing and just go back home or leave. My kids always joke, like if we're out Christmas shopping or something, they're like, I think it's time to leave now, because I start to get agitated and grumpy or like, very kind of almost hyper. I always say it's like a pot of boiling water. And then when so much spirit's around, I start to overflow in some form. So I have to just leave and get out because it becomes too much. It's suffocating.
Do you find that spirits kind of do that to the energy of different places, and people maybe will go into a place and get really agitated and really not be aware of what's causing that agitation?
Absolutely. I think that's what, the witch that we talked about, that's sort of what for people who didn't see her, that's probably what she would do. She would make the energy around so strange and agitation and all of that kind of stuff that you wouldn't want to stay there. You'd be like, no, we got to leave here. This doesn't feel right. And so they just want you out, and they do that. And the more there is, the more they can do it.
Well, something to be aware of when you're out on out in the woods where there could be a witch, right?
Right. Well, and I mean, the thing is too, is a lot of times they're doing it for our own benefit. It's not just for them to say, get out of our space. Sometimes there's something there and they don't want you to get hurt or be involved or whatever. So it's best to just listen and leave.
Yeah, let them have their space. Oh my goodness. I mean, we could talk forever. You've got so many great and interesting experiences, Lisa. My goodness. Where can our listeners connect with you and learn more about your work and your other books, and also where they can get ghost stories?
Ghost Stories is available on Amazon right now. It's in ebook or paperback. And my website is www.purplelotus66.com, and you can get all my information there.
And you do readings and connect with people in that way too, right?
Yes, I do. Yep.
Well, that is so awesome. Well, Lisa, thank you so much for taking the time to share all of your ghost stories with us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, thank you, Lisa. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, Ghost Stories, A Medium's Interaction with the Afterlife. Ghost Stories is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers, and of course you can download it tonight on Kindle. Again, if you'd like to connect with Lisa, you can at her website, purplelotus66.com, for more information. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.